You already know this scene. A stranger walks toward a pair of swinging doors, and he pushes through. The piano stops. Every man in the room turns to look at him. The bartender polishes a glass. Behind the bar is a long mirror, a painting of a woman above it, brass spittoons on the floor, and a card game in the corner. You have seen this 100 times. You could draw it from memory. But here is what Hollywood never told you. Those swinging doors reached only from chest to knee. The mirror behind the bar was not decoration. It was a survival tool. The free lunch was the most profitable investment in the building. And the bartender polishing that glass was not a servant. He was the most powerful man in town. Every detail inside an Old West saloon existed for a practical reason. None of it was aesthetic. None of it was accidental. In the movies, saloon doors are full height. In reality, batwing doors extended only from chest height to knee level. The design served 3 functions: ventilation, because a room full of men smoking and sweating had no fans and no electricity; dust control, because the dirt street outside was thick with horse manure and alkali; and third, the bartender could see who was approaching before they entered. He had a sight line over those half-height doors to the street. He could spot a badge, a rifle, or a troublemaker before they crossed the threshold. That half-second of warning could save his life. The full-height swinging saloon door is a Hollywood invention designed to give the camera a clean shot of the actor's entrance. Before we go any further inside, you need to understand something Hollywood cannot transmit through a screen: the smell. Imagine being hit by a wall of air thick enough to taste, sour beer soaked into a floor that has never been properly cleaned. The spit from chewing tobacco that missed the spittoon landed on the sawdust, a surface permanently damp and fermenting underfoot. Tobacco smoke so dense the ceiling was stained brown, the sweat of 30 men who had not bathed in weeks. And every time those doors swung open, dust and horse manure from the street settled on every surface, including your drink. The spittoons placed every few feet along the bar were a public health compromise that mostly failed. Chewing tobacco was more popular than smoking because a cowboy on a cattle drive could not light a match near the herd. 1 spark and 2,000 longhorns could stampede. So cowboys chewed, and by the time they reached town, the habit was locked in. Most men missed the spittoon. The floor around each one was stained dark with tobacco juice that soaked into the wood and never came out. The lighting was dim, not romantic dim, functional dim. The counter was sticky. The glasses were rinsed in a bucket of water that was changed when someone remembered. The movies show polished wood and crystal. The reality was sawdust, spit, smoke, and a smell that would make a modern person gag in the doorway. Now look behind the bar. Almost every saloon had a large mirror on the back wall. It was not decoration. It was a security system. The bartender spent his shift facing the back wall. His back was to the room. In a space full of armed men, that was a death sentence unless you had a mirror. The mirror let him watch every table, every door, and every hand reaching toward a belt while he appeared to be working. When a mirror broke in a fight, replacing it was one of the most expensive repairs the owner faced. Glass that size had to be shipped by wagon across the territory. Bartenders kept a shotgun under the bar, partly to maintain order, partly to protect the mirror. The brass rail at the base of the bar was not decoration either. It was furniture. Most saloons had no seating. Cowboys stood for hours. The footrail let a man shift his weight and reduce the strain on his back. And here is the business reason. A comfortable man stays longer. A man who stays longer drinks more. The footrail was an investment in dwell time. Now this is the section that changes how you think about every bar you have ever walked into. Most saloons advertised a free lunch, pickled eggs, salted sausages, pretzels, bread, sometimes oysters. Any man could eat for free, or so it appeared. Every single item was loaded with salt, deliberately, strategically, aggressively. The pickled eggs sat in brine, the sausages were cured in salt, the pretzels were crusted with it. Every bite dried the mouth, tightened the throat, and the only thing that satisfied the craving was another drink at 5 to 10 cents a glass. The owner spent $1 to $2 per day on food and generated $15 to $20 in extra drink sales, a return of 700 to 2,000%. No modern marketing campaign comes close. The bartender monitored who ate and who bought. Freeloaders were tracked and thrown out. The lunch was free in name only. The real price was paid at the bar, 1 nickel at a time. This practice produced a phrase Americans still use every day without knowing where it came from. There is no such thing as a free lunch. That phrase was born in these saloons from this exact practice. Think of a cowboy in Tombstone eating pickled eggs while his paycheck evaporates nickel by nickel. The whiskey was nothing like smooth bourbon. What most customers got was a substance called Coffin Varnish, raw grain alcohol mixed with burnt sugar for color, chewing tobacco juice for flavor, and sometimes turpentine or creosote, a wood preservative that was toxic in any quantity. No regulation, no inspectors, no ingredient labels. The name was not slang, it was a description. Men died from this liquor, not dramatically, slowly. Liver damage and kidney failure accumulated over months of regular consumption. The frontier killed more men with whiskey than it ever killed with bullets. Even the beer was warm, flat, and sometimes spiked with additives. The most powerful man in most frontier towns was not the sheriff. It was the bartender. He knew who owed money, who carried weapons, who was law enforcement, and who was running from it. Sometimes they were the same person on different days. Men told bartenders things they would never tell anyone else. For 25 cents, a cowboy could get the good whiskey instead of coffin varnish, get his tab forgotten, or get a warning that someone was looking for him. 25 cents bought access to the most connected man in town. Many bartenders later ran for political office. After years behind the bar, they knew every voter by name, their debts, and their secrets. The path from bartender to mayor was well worn on the frontier. The gambling tables were designed to keep a man losing slowly because slow losses keep a man drinking for hours. Faro was the most popular game, not poker, and the dealing boxes could be rigged so subtly that most players never noticed. Doc Holliday made more money at Faro than he ever made as a dentist. Behind the main floor, back rooms hosted land deals, political meetings, and high-stakes poker. The phrase backroom deal comes directly from these spaces. Wyatt Earp conducted official business in saloon back rooms because they were often the largest private spaces in town. Step back and look at what this building actually was. It was not a bar. It was the communication hub, social network, job board, and political headquarters of the entire town. Travelers brought news. Wanted notices were pinned to the walls. The bartender was the search engine. The free lunch was the algorithm keeping you engaged longer than you intended. Saloons outnumbered churches, schools, and every other institution, not because the frontier was full of drunks, because the saloon was the operating system everything else ran on. And everything I have described, you can still see it today. At least 17 Old West saloons are still operating as bars today. Saloon number 10 in Deadwood is where Wild Bill Hickok was shot in the back of the head while playing poker in 1876. He was holding aces and eights forever known as the dead man's hand. The chair is still there. The bucket of blood in Virginia City was built over the Boston Saloon, owned by a freed slave named William Brown, one of the first black business owners in the territory. Big Nose Kate's in Tombstone was originally the Grand Hotel where the Earps and the Clantons stayed the night before the OK Corral. The men who would try to kill each other the next morning slept under the same roof. A drink costs more than 5 cents now. But the mirror still watches. The brass rail still holds your weight. And if you listen carefully on a quiet night, the floor still creaks the way it did when a stranger pushed through the doors and every eye in the room turned to look. Tell me in the comments which detail changed how you see saloons, the mirror that was a survival tool, the free lunch that was a 700% marketing scam, or the bartender who was secretly the most powerful man in town. Hit like, subscribe, ring the bell, and come along, because next week we are pulling another story out of the dirt that never made it into the history books. Reality always outguns the screenwriters.